Well, Jacob Bradt, welcome to the journey. And I know that we have done some work together in the past regarding a couple different events and different activities. And I've been following you with your show that's not new anymore. It's been around for a while, but uh, like many people that come on the show, we're really trying to help identify individuals in the community that are not only have learned from certain things that have gone on in their life, from either setbacks or an aspiration to do something. What are some of those struggles and what did we learn in those struggles? But then most importantly, how did we take what we learned and move that into our current and how we can either assist other people or live the life that we want to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Kevin. Like, I'm super excited to be on the show and having this conversation with you. And like you said, we've got to work together in the past some, and we keep bumping into each other at Wired all the time. So,
Yep,
well,
exactly.
we did.
We did exactly, exactly.
Been a little different lately, but
So, so Jake, why don't you first start off and maybe just share a little bit about yourself? Well, let's start with what does Jake do for fun? When you have the opportunity to have fun, what do you do?
yeah. My fiance and I are big outdoorsy people, so we do a lot of hiking, walks, paddle boarding. We'll be doing some cycling when the weather warms up. When it's cold out or rainy, I like board games, and so I have a board game collection here at home, and we do that a lot for friends and family time. And yeah, so
Gotcha.
between the family and the business and spending time outside, that takes up pretty much most of the day.
So over this, let's say holidays and the restrictions of COVID, what would be if there was a go-to board game that you guys utilize with family or just being inside? What board game we're using?
The one we're playing a lot right now is Azul, Azul, and
Okay.
it's like a tile laying pattern building kind of game. Um,
Gotcha. And that it obviously allows
yep, up to
multiple people
four.
to play.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, and then I know that you just got engaged this year.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yep.
and your fiance's name?
Is Leah.
Leah. Okay. And how long have you and Leah been together?
We actually met in quarantine, so we
Oh,
met and started dating and just here this year, back in June, and yeah, it was kind of one of those like matches, match made in heaven kind of stories, and
sure.
so yeah, so proposed earlier this year, and we're getting married here in September, coming up real soon.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very cool. So Jake, so tell us a little bit about you. What's your backstory? Are you from the Rockford area? Were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I actually grew up out on a family farm just northwest of Rockford on like the Owen Center Road, Latham Road kind of area. But the way school districts are drawn out in the middle of the boondocks is all squiggly and weird. So I ended up going to Rockton School District from kindergarten all the way through high school. So I'm a Hononegah graduate,
Gotcha.
but always had a Rockford address. And so, I've worked and played in Rockford, and now I've lived in Rockford most of my life. So,
And going back to the Hananiga days or when you were in middle school, any particular what was who was Jake back then? What was your interest? What were the things that you were into? Um,
oh
extracurricular
yeah.
activities?
I was a big aviation geek and still am. Like, just really love planes. I aspire to be a pilot someday. Just not professionally, but just get my pilot's license. And so in middle school, I grew up watching Top Gun, right, with like Tom Cruise and all that
Sure.
stuff. So I was gonna be a Navy fighter pilot when I was really little, and then I kind of figured learned about the realities of the military and decided that that wasn't something that was I was suited for, I felt would be suited for me, and so kind of pivoted and went into aviation engineering. So wanting to be an aerospace engineer was kind of my pursuit during high school and college. And clearly what I do today has nothing to do with aerospace engineering. So there's
Sure.
been some twists and turns along the path.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you graduated from Honda. You obviously had a passion and a love for the idea of flying and all that aspect of it. And then I'm assuming that you had some competencies and proficiencies in math and science.
Yep, big math geek, and still love numbers. Back in high school, I did a lot of like CAD, computer aided drafting, and 3D modeling classes. I even did like some CAD competitions at the high school level at Rock Valley College, which I know like I'm just increasing my nerd level here as I talk, but so I did that. And then after high school, I went to Rock Valley College just to get some gen eds out of the way. And it was my second semester of calc-based physics that I kind of decided that maybe I didn't want to do engineering for the next, 40 years of my life. And so pivoted into political science with an applied mathematics double major. With that means that I shoved a 2-year Rock Valley degree into 3 years. So added a year onto my community college. But I graduated, got my associate's degree from there. And it was actually in that time that there was some like life changes with like my dad getting remarried. And so basically like a couple of weeks after I was supposed to ship off to attend University of Illinois Chicago, I got a letter back saying that all of my financial grant money that I thought that I had been denied because of the way that my parents reporting on their finances and stuff had changed with my dad getting remarried earlier that year. So my 4-year university ambitions kind of fell through last minute. I'd already moved out of my parents' place at the time. My dad and I had a really hard and complicated relationship, so I had moved out at the age of 19 to try to get away from that environment. And then when my college application fell through, or college funding, and I wasn't able to go to school like I thought I was going to be able to, I just was kind of like, well, I was working at Arby's at the time as kind of a holdover job until I went off to school. And I was like, I don't want to do fast food anymore. So I kind of applied on a whim at Best Buy because I've always been into computers, I've always been in technology, and they hired me. And so I ended up spending 3 years at Best Buy. I have never gone back to college. So I have an associate's, but no 4-year degree. But did pretty well at Best Buy and actually got recruited out of Best Buy to work for a local IT company here in town, Entree Computer Solutions. And
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah.
I worked for Mike and Kurt for 6.5 years. And it was in that time that Rockford Buzz formed. And I ended up um, turning in my 30-day notice in November, and December 1st of 2014, so a little over 6 years ago now, I stepped away from my career in IT, and I've been doing Rockford Buzz full time ever since.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let me go back, and I'm just curious if you and again, obviously this is speculation, but what were you hoping with a bachelor's degree with emphasis on poli sci, with political science? What was the aspiration at USC? Were you hoping what was at that point were you hoping to do?
That point, it was run for office or do like statistical analysis and work on a campaign, help run a campaign, which is why I
Okay.
had kind of the applied mathematics as a secondary there.
Okay.
Um, was working polls and numbers and all those fun things that go along with running a successful political campaign.
And obviously 2020's political year, right? And all the turmoil that was going on and things like that. There may be some listeners that would go, "Why would you want to go into that world intentionally?" Right? Um,
Yeah.
so, so when you think back of that, what was you wanted to get involved with politics, either running yourself or helping someone, running contributing to their campaign through utilizing analysis and things like that. What were you thinking then that you wanted to get involved with the political arena?
Uh, Ultimately, like I just want to make the world a better place. And at
Okay.
the time, I felt like that was my best avenue to do so,
Mhm.
was to enact change and, you know, just try to make America or my little slice of it just a little bit better, right? And
Sure.
so that was my drive then. It still very much is my drive now. It's just that that passion is expressed very differently. So,
Sure. Right, right.
yeah.
Okay. And if there was something that you learned from your experience at working at Entree, I've known the Broskis for a long, for an a long period of time. But when you think back on that time period you were at Entree, what would be something that you would probably say you took away from that experience?
Uh, a lot. That was my foray into doing, business to business sales and like relationship oriented selling. When you work at Best Buy, it's like the person comes in, they buy the computer, they leave, and you'll probably never see them again, right?
Hmm.
Like pretty rare. So moving into a more relationship oriented sales environment, learning about project management, working together in a larger team environment, customer relationship management software, and yeah, just a lot. uh, so I started there in inside sales, and then roughly 3 years in, I got moved to project management, and so I did project management, process development, and even there for like the last year or so I was there, I did tower climbing. So I would climb water towers and cell towers and grain elevators and things like that to install wireless technology.
Interesting. So
Yep.
there was definitely a wide variety of experiences that you had working there.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of did a little bit of everything. I was like, a Swiss Army knife there for them, and so it was a great experience. And I loved working there. Like, I loved what I did. I was really good at it. I liked the people that I worked with. But I just had kind of stumbled across this, passion with Rockford Buzz, and a way for me to try to make my little slice of the world a better place. And so as that kind of started to gain speed and gain traction, and it got to the point where I kind of had to make a decision, right? Like, I had my full-time career at Entree that was pulling on my time. I had my business that was pulling on my time. I had found out, earlier in the year that, or relatively early on in this whole Rockford Buzz adventure, I'd found out that my son Jethro, who is now 6 years old, was on the way. And so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, I either need to turn this into a business and turn this into something that can sustain my family, or I need to drop this little Facebook hobby that I have, um, and focus on my career at Entree.
Sure.
And at that point, I had chosen the former. And as it gained speed, I ended up having to make that decision. Do I go full time, right?
Yeah.
And do my own business, or do I keep doing the thing that's safe and secure and comfortable?
Yeah.
And
So I definitely want to come back and revisit that. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what is Rockford Buzz, and what is, what is that concept, and then what has it evolved to right now?
sure. So it's gone through a lot of evolutions in the last 6 years or so. But I feel like one thing that I found out of 2020 and having a lot more time to sit and think, as we all have had, was I got a lot of clarity around kind of what is Rockford Buzz's niche, and like what is the space, like what is the shape of my puzzle piece to really fit into kind of what it is that I do. It all actually started out of a source of frustration, to be honest with you. I've been a pro Rockford guy for like as long as I can remember. And I've always seen the potential in Rockford, right? Like, we have a lot going for us in terms of our cultural assets, our natural assets, a great community, a low cost of living, and then we're like less than 2 hours from three, very large metropolitan areas. And I had friends and family that were always just talking smack about Rockford, for lack of a better term, right? Saying how it's so terrible to live here, and they can't wait to get away, and there's nothing to do, and they're so bored, and all these things. So it got to a point where I kind of started challenging some of them and asking, have you been to Anderson Japanese Gardens? Have you been to City Market? Have you, caught live music? Have you been to Starlight Theater? Have you, like, when was the last time you went to Coronado or caught an Ice Hogs game? And just start rattling things off. And a lot of the responses that I got from them was basically ignorance, right? They're like, well, if I'd known that these things existed, then, I wouldn't have this, crappy attitude about it. And so in my frustration, I was like, fine, like you can claim ignorance this once, but I'm going to go out and start and remove that excuse. So I actually grabbed my cell phone and just started running around downtown Rockford, popping into businesses and saying, hey, I have this little Facebook page. It's called, it wasn't even called Rockford Buzz at the time. It was called Dream Rockford. My little slogan was Dream of a Better Rockford. And I would just hold my phone up and record a little video of them and post it to my Facebook page, and that's how it got started. Um,
Okay.
it's kind of crazy thinking back because like I didn't have any editing skills. Like I had no education in photography or video work. I didn't have software on my computer. I literally had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I could record video on my phone and I could hold it really still for a while, and it's about all I knew. So, I would hit record and they would get 4 minutes into their little spiel about their business and they'd mess up. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, you have to start all the way from the beginning because I don't know how to edit your video. So they'd have to redo the whole thing all over again, right from the beginning. But Rockford is a really supportive community. Like people just want to help people out. And so I
Right.
got a lot of early support. It's like they're like, yeah, like I like the idea. Like I'm not having to pay to do it. Like, sure, I'll talk about my business in front of you for a couple of minutes. And that's how it kind of all got started. Yeah.
And then as just going back to that original origin state, right? That you wanted to show your friends, show people that you knew that were talking the stereotypical smack about where they come from.
Yeah.
What kind of response over time have they not specific individuals, but as a whole, what how have they how do you think that they've utilized Rockford Buzz to change their perception of Rockford?
Yeah, I mean, like I've had, close friends and family and complete strangers tell me that, because of the content that they see from us, that they learn about new places that they never would have known existed before, and that it has given them, a real connection to what makes Rockford special, and that is like our small business and our local organizations that do that, and has really helped change their opinion on it. It's funny because at the beginning, everybody, the common response was, why would you do that? That was the common response. It wasn't like, oh, that's a great idea, like that's so amazing of you, or I hope you the best. It was kind of like, why would you want to highlight Rockford? Like there's nothing to highlight here, right? That was kind of the general response that I got. And now that we've been around for a while and we've built an audience and we've built a name for ourselves through a lot of hard work and a lot of grit, and a lot of hustle, like now it's funny because I don't hear that anymore, right? I don't hear the question like, why would you do that? It's like, it's so great that you do this, is the
Yeah.
response that we get now.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you look back, right, so you started in 2014, right? And
Yeah, the
there were,
hobby started like in 2013 and we
okay,
formally launched the business in 2014.
okay. And so and there has been a significant transformation in the last 6 to 7 years in the Rockford area, specifically downtown and in other areas of Rockford, and obviously being able to let people know about that is part of how you're contributing to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we like to, at the beginning, I viewed myself kind of like as like a marketing platform for small business, but today, and one of those things that I've, learned in the last 12 to 18 months and kind of really come to realize is like we are very much just a positive news media outlet. We're like, a local TV or radio station or newspaper. It's just that we're, digital only, and we create this kind of niche kind of content, um and yeah, and that's kind of like our way of helping to raise Rockford up is by just promoting the positive stories that are within our own community and showing people, those that live, right down the street from them, that are doing good things to pursue their own dreams and start their businesses and pursue their passions. And in that effort, right, it makes the community better as a whole. So.
So that'll be so when you think of and I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, it goes from an idea and then it evolves as we learn more about what we didn't know and we figure out what does work and what doesn't work and and then we have to sometimes kind of sit back and and especially with the changes that happened in 2020, how how to is this really the direction I want things to go, right? And so it sounds like you're saying you made a conscious choice of talking about Rockford community as a whole, but talking about it from the light perspective or from the life-giving perspective, the hope perspective, versus what is extremely popular in media and social media, which is sensationalizing tragedy, crisis, negativity.
Correct. Yeah, we've never ran a negative news story on Rockford Buzz in the 6+ years that it's been a thing, right? Like we explicitly state that we have a bias in our media and that and it's one of positivity and solutions. And so, you know, you're right about the social media and the news, right? Like if it bleeds, it leads. That was kind of one of the things that frustrated me. And I understand, from a news reporting perspective, right? Like if you are a news channel, that kind of comes with the territory. But especially 6 to 7 years ago, it felt like, the positive news reporting was just a sliver of the overall content. And so I kind of wanted to be the antithesis to that. And that means like, in terms of working the social media algorithm and getting our message out there, like it is an uphill battle, because click throughs aren't as high on positive news as they are on negative news. Like the data shows it. It's a fact, right? So we just focus on creating a community and pulling like-minded people that want to see positive news and want to see the good side of our community and get connected with it, and really kind of feeding to those people. And in the last 6 years, between Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, we're like bumping up next to 20,000 followers, and so that's mostly right here in the greater Rockford area.
Sure.
And so it's kind of funny to think, like, oh, it was just me. Like I was the only positive person in Rockford when I started this, because everybody around me was negative, right? And so when you're the only one thinking or talking a certain way, it's easy to feel alone. But one thing I've really found through this whole adventure is that I'm not alone. There's literally
Right.
thousands of people in our own community that feel the same way that I do.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. Number one, you wouldn't necessarily know people who were focusing on that. They probably were so focused on doing their thing in their lane that they weren't necessarily connected or networked. Um, and then over time, some of those 20,000 followers are now they got invited into something that they may have been in the middle about anyways, but this was a way for them to lean in toward being more life giving than attracted to life taking things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So you said earlier that you had to had to make some tough decisions, right? So this idea of well, one of those tough decisions was early on when you found out financially you didn't have the money to go to UIC or continue with UIC. Um, so you had to make some tough decisions with that, and then later when you're at Entree, you start this thing. It really, like you said, it was a hobby, um, and then you're working it, and it sounds like, and refresh our memories. You went full time, or you left Entree. When did you leave Entree?
So the Rockford Buzz is just a hobby, started like the middle of 2013 or so.
Yeah.
And it was that summer that I found out that Jethro was on his way. 2014 comes and he's born in May. We launched the first version of the website in September, and then December I leave Entree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you were making some pretty quick decisions, pretty quick decisions after Jethro was born.
Yeah, yeah. So like the way that we monetize is through like sponsorships essentially. So the small business community and the local organization community sponsors Rockford Buzz through, and they get benefits and advertising exposure through that. So I was kind of pre-selling sponsorships, before we launched the website, basically
Mhm.
saying like, hey, like your, annual sponsorship or monthly sponsorship doesn't start until the website launches and we formally launch. So like the business was kind of starting to pay for itself at that point in time. But what I was really bumping into is just a lack of time in my day. Like, I was committed to doing the work for Entree while I was at Entree, but there's only so much I could get done for Rockford Buzz between the hours of 5, 6 o'clock at night and like whenever I crashed out. There's
Sure.
only so much I could do on the weekend. And like, plus it's like now I had this new addition to the family. And so how do I balance all of these things? And um, it kind of came down to like, I was feeling like I was robbing Mike and Kurt of their time, right? It was like a buzz phone call would come in and it's like I would run out on my lunch break to shoot a video really quick and I would run back. And it's just like this, it just felt like there was just too much. So I kind of had to make the decision of, you know, I either have to dive in with faith and have faith that like the financial piece will be provided for, right, if this is really what I'm meant to do, or like
Hmm.
I just need to cut the cord because like I can't juggle all of this, right? So even after I decided, hey, I'm going to make this a business, even after I decided like, hey, I'm going to sell things, it was very much still that trying to juggle the full-time job with this part-time side business, and then making that decision of when I was going to leave the nice stable income, right?
Right.
And so when I put in my 30-day notice, Mike looked at me and he asked, he's like, is there anything I can say or do to keep you here? Like, so you don't go. And it was, one of the highest praises you can get from, an employer, right? Is like, what can I do to make you stay? But I told him, I was like, Mike, I have to know whether or not I can do this. Like, I don't want to get 60 years down the road and look back and wonder, what if? Like, I would much rather have a life filled with oh wells and, oh darns than what ifs, right? And so I decided to take a 50% pay cut essentially to go full time into Rockford Buzz on a wing and a prayer and a lot of hard work. And there was a lot of sacrifices that had to be made, but I'm glad that I did it. Like I
Uh,
had no regrets, right?
Well, and I think that Jake, that you just told the story of every successful entrepreneur, right, has
Yeah,
that elements to the story. Now, the unsuccessful entrepreneur, right, makes the leap of faith, but may not have done all the hard work of of all the different aspects of a business, regardless if it's a formal business plan or not. It's figuring out not only the what you need to quantify what you need to monetize and quantify that, but then it's also the element of, do you have a good story that other people will find value?
yeah, and I feel like a lot of my success comes from some books that I read, and like one of those big books is Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Mhm.
And he talks about why, that the fact that people don't care about what you do, they care about why you do it. And so, if you're telling the story of your brand or your mission or whatever, to talk about, what it is that drives you, to talk about your core beliefs. And so that was kind of how I led every conversation. And I still do today. That's how I lead every conversation, with a new business or organization that isn't familiar with me or what we do. And then the other one is by Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's called the Thank You Economy. And it's just this idea of, if you go out and you sow good seeds, that, people build a connection to you and they want to reciprocate those good seeds that you've sown into their life. And so, we've done 800 plus Rockford Buzz videos for local businesses just here in the last 6 years. And I've never charged a penny for any of those videos. And I wanted to be able to walk into a place and be, hey, my name is Jake, and I'm here to help. And this is how I can help you. I can shoot a little video, I can post it on my social media and help you get the word out about your business. And as opposed to it being, hi, my name is Jake, and I'm here to sell you something, which in the world of advertising and marketing, that's usually the message that they hear, right?
Sure.
And so, yeah, so I just kind of like rocked those two ideas, and it's worked for us. It's worked for me.
And I know that you got into other things that to promote the Rockford Buzz brand. Obviously, a big part of what you, a big part of the source of revenue, right? To
Mhm.
to keep you being able to do it full time, and that element is the sponsorships from the website, right? So that sounds like that's your primary revenue stream, right?
Yeah, so it's funny. Like when I started Rockford Buzz, I told myself I'm not going to write code, and I don't want to be quote unquote the video guy, right? Those are two
Yep.
things that I said out loud to myself and to everybody around me that would listen in the first few years that I ran Rockford Buzz. I now write all my own code. So the app that you download from the App Store for your iPhone or Android, or the website that you visit, like I wrote all that from scratch and taught myself how to code back in like 2017. And now, like, the primary value that I provide for our community is the video work that we do. And we do professional video production. That's the side of the business that I've just kind of grown via word of mouth and building relationships. And, you do all these free Buzz videos and people see them and like them. They go, hey, we want to shoot a TV commercial. Do you do that? And we do. So, we shoot a lot of TV commercials here in the area. We shoot a lot of, fundraising pieces and brand documentaries and all sorts of fun stuff like that as well. So,
Gotcha. So, and that was something that I didn't know you guys did, that you got into. And now that was another thing that obviously you learned along the way. It wasn't anything that you necessarily were specifically trained in. It was just what you've learned along the way.
yeah, like I said earlier, I never went back to school, like quote unquote school, but I also never stopped learning either.
Right.
School of YouTube and a lot of books, and working with and partnering with other professionals just here in the area has taught me a lot. Like my first TV commercial that I sold, I didn't even own a camera when I first sold my first TV commercial. And but I had connections in the community with videographers and people that did. And so I said, hey, like, I have the sales side of things, I have the relationship side of things, you have the creative side. So I'll subcontract you, right? So I'll subcontract you to do the commercial, and you bring your camera and your equipment, and I'll work with the client on the script and on the directorial side, and we'll form a partnership. And so, that was with Zach like 5, almost 6 years ago now. And to date, we've done, I don't know, 60, 70 professional projects together. We're shooting one this Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to be on set for a day and a half together.
Nice.
Um, and
Nice.
so, yeah. Um, and
Well, and
so
I
just
think
learning from him and
Well, I think those things, along with kind of like everything that really was the origins of Rockford Buzz, is about collaborating and about hel- you helping not only your client, but then helping other individuals so that you can collaborate with them, and then you could be farther ahead than if you would have completely done it solo yourself.
yeah, absolutely. I have skills and I'm very good at those skills, but the number of skills that I have is a very short list. And so finding people that are, better at my job than I am, right, is kind of like the entrepreneurial goal
Mhm.
is, how do I surround myself with people that are smarter and better than me? Because without them, like I'm not going to go anywhere, right? Like you can go fast by yourself, but if you want to go far, you need a team of people around you. And so,
Sure, sure.
finding those people.
So when you, and I know, you have a podcast, and that's another way of, getting digital content out to people and getting information out, and another way of reaching people in the midst of, and I know this, and I know that there's probably more than one that would meet in this, that would fall into this category, but just off the top of your head, either someone that you've interviewed in when you went to their place of employment or their organization, or if someone you had on your podcast, if there's one in particular that stood out to you, that kind of like, that if you wouldn't have had the opportunity to either meet them or have them on the show, you wouldn't have learned that. It opened up something else. It opened up a new perspective for you. Anything come to mind for you?
Uh, yeah, actually, like really early on. And it wasn't even a Buzz video per se. It was somebody that I used to work like. It's crazy, right? So all those degrees of separation here or ways of connection. So it was Chris Kelly, and he works in marketing. He was a client of mine when I worked at Entree. So when I was in inside sales at Entree, he was a guy that I met with and had supported from the IT side or whatever. And so Chris had contacted me pretty early on in my Rockford Buzz days after I'd already gone full time and said, "Hey, I'm on the committee for the Addy Awards, which is kind of like the Grammys for advertising, and they have a local chapter here in Rockford." And he said, "Hey, we want to do just like a little featurette for Lonnie's Carpet Max and Al Grace Appliance of just like interviewing them and compiling a bunch of their old ad footage and making a little tribute video for them. Would you be willing to do it, pro bono, because we're just a little, Addy Award organization. And so we can't pay you, but we just really uh, love your help. And we'll make you a sponsor and give you free tickets to come to the event and have a good time." And, I was and still very much am in the habit of just saying yes, because you never know what door will open when you say yes. And so I was like, yeah, I would love to. And so I did those videos, and at the Addy Awards, they played them both. Lonnie and Brad from Al Grace, just like they both loved them. They thought they were great. It's crazy because like I shot those interview pieces with my cell phone. I still didn't have a camera. So I was still shooting videos with my cell phone. I had a little lavalier mic, but it wasn't wireless, so I had a cord run down out the bottom of their short and all the way across the floor and plug into my cell phone to get the audio. Like I didn't have lights. Like I mean, it was really rough, right? Like
Yeah.
looking back today, based on what I would bring in to do that shoot, it's a whole nother world. But I did it and they liked it. And maybe like a week or two later, I got a call from Monica at Hills Marketing. And she was like, "Hey, Jake, Lonnie loved working with you. He felt super comfortable. He thought the video for the Addy Awards was great. We're kind of in between videographers right now, and we need to shoot a commercial. And so I was calling to see if you do any TV commercial work." And that was the first connection that I had to doing professional video production. I had never done it before. I was like, "Yeah, I totally do that." Like nervous on the other end of the phone. Like, "Yeah, absolutely, I do that for companies, sure." And then I hung up, and then quickly panic dialed my friend in the videography business, going like, "Hey, like, I don't have a camera, and I'm supposed to do a TV commercial shoot. Like, what do I do?" Right? And so that kind of opened up that whole door of professional video production work that now it accounts for, 40% of my revenue every year.
Sure. Okay.
Is just doing that kind
Interesting.
of work.
Yeah. Well, and I think you make a phenomenal point, right? So if we, you know, kind of going back to some of those, forks in the road, right? If you would have played it safe, then all these things that have been happening, right? Doors that have opened, that you've then also chosen to walk through those doors, they happen because you chose not to play it safe. Now, granted, it wasn't like it was less work. It probably was more work, but you had to resist the temptation of playing it safe. Um,
Yeah,
and I think in similar to saying yes on that very brief phone call about helping out with the Addies, even though you knew that it wasn't going to necessarily, there wasn't going to be any monetary value to it. It ended up being a critical monetary, strategic monetary pathway because it led to doing 40% of your business now.
right. And like in hindsight, it would, you'd say that's a no-brainer. But in the moment, it's a different story, right? Because in the moment, I'm saying yes to something that at the time, I was like, I'm not going to get paid on this when I'm trying to feed a baby, feed my family. I'm within my first year of being full time. Like I said, I just took a 50% pay cut. So I have all these financial pressures. I'm trying to grow my business financially. And then I get this call from somebody going, will you do two large videos, right, that are going to take days of your time? And by the way, like we can't pay you for them, right? And so it's always like the play it safe. I feel like there's always kind of two major temptations, right? It's playing it safe, and then it's like the greed side of things, right? Where it's, well, this isn't paying me, so I'm not going to do it. Or I've had a lot of people over the years go, Jake, you should charge for your buzz videos. Like you are providing them so much value and you're not even asking for like anything. And for me, it was like, no, I don't want to charge for those videos because I feel like the psychological shift that happens, even if you just ask for a single dollar, is one is is one where it blocks me off to a whole lot of people that need help, right? Where if I come in and I say, hey, I'm going to do this for you for free, I don't care if you never become a sponsor. That's not what I'm here to do. Like, I'm going to tell you about my sponsor program because that's how I pay my bills, but it's not a bait and switch. It's a no strings attached free promotion for your business, right? Like, maintaining that integrity for me was more important than just taking the quote unquote the easy money, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I think you definitely nailed it. There's a lot of noise and there's a lot of distracting things and out there. And then when we have fear of financial instability or financial failure, um, that can definitely get into a distracting way. Or when we have, too much going on, too much work going on, then how do we know what to say no to so we can say yes to the right things? And that isn't easy to do either. It's a trial and error aspect of things, and being able to take the time, like you talked about in the last few months, to be able to sit and reflect and go, okay, what directions do I want Rockford Buzz to go in? What directions do I want Jake to move in? So that it can be the right yeses that strategically will continue to keep the same message.
yeah, absolutely. And like we try and fail a lot here, right? Like I believe in placing little bets and just trying small things because you never know what small thing will turn into a big thing. And my philosophy is like fail just fast enough so that you don't tank your project, right? Like fail as fast as you can without falling completely flat. Um, because like you don't, you learn through your failures,
Right.
and that's why we have, I'm on my fifth version of my app and my website in 6 years. Like I've binned four entire versions of my website, and rewrote the whole thing from scratch just because of what we were learning and how we were doing things. Like
Mm.
2020 hit and I could no longer stand next to someone to have an interview conversation with them. Now I had to be 6+ feet away. So that meant like I had to figure out another way of introducing myself to maintain like my presence within the brand, but then also doing the interview in a way and figuring out some of the audio logistics around that. But because of that, we have a whole new format of video that came out of that that people really, really like. And so, even in the midst of challenges, just trying different things, um, is what's gonna lead to the road, lead down the road of success, right? Like,
Absolutely. So when you think of the 2021, we're starting 2021 right now, and you think of 21 and 22, what new things, what things would you obviously still keeping the focus of what you do with Rockford Buzz and what Jake does with Rockford Buzz, but what anything on the horizon that you have coming up?
yeah, a lot of things actually.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a very face-to-face kind of person. In my personal life, I'm like never on social media. I maybe open up Facebook once a day when I'm like have like 5 minutes to kill, right? But in my personal life, I'm never on social, which is a little weird to think that, like I produce all this content for social media, but then I'm like never post anything personally. So I do a great job in engaging with our business community because I'm face to face, right? Like I'm going out, I'm seeing them, I'm talking to them on the phone, I'm sending them emails, that kind of thing. But in terms of engaging with our audience and giving back directly to our small business community, we wanted to take some time at the end of 2020 to figure out how to do that so we could like launch things this year. So we're like in the process of launching things like in like this week and next week at the time of this recording, here at the very beginning of 2021 to do that. So we're launching some kind of gift card programs. So we're gonna like draw a random drawing from our Rockford Buzz users like every month, and for birthday giveaways. So we'll at the end of January we'll draw for a happy birthday $50 gift card to a local business of your choice.
Uh,
We're doing polls and voting where our audience can vote on like their favorite place to get tacos or their favorite place to have coffee, favorite local coffee establishment, that sort of thing. And, everyone that participates in the vote, will, do a random drawing from there to give a $25 gift card to a local coffee place or whatever the theme of that poll is, right?
sure.
And we're doing some referral program stuff too, just to try to like draw more people to the website. Social media is where a lot of the people live, and so like we have to live there. But I can't control Facebook's algorithm, and so as a business, I want to try to get people like on our email newsletter, on our website, downloading our app, and engaged in our community at a higher level. And so doing these, kind of giveaways in a fun way lets us directly give back to the small business community, directly give to the people that engage with us and that are our audience, but do it in like a way that's kind of fun because that's part of our brand is like having fun. And
Sure,
so
sure. Well, and I think that, and again, you've been doing that all along, and the main thing was about Rockford, the greater Rockford community. And now what I'm hearing you say is even outside of the business community, it would be more the fans or the patrons, right? That
yep,
you are looking at trying to create more of a community with them by having them engaging either in the surveys or engaging in different aspects of interacting with on the website or interacting on social media for the website.
yep,
Sounds good. Well,
yeah,
Jake, as we get ready to wrap up, because I think everything that you're doing is, and what I love so much about your story is that obviously you had setbacks, and setbacks, as we know, are always part of the story. And there's a time when we'll learn more from a setback than we will if the door just opened, right? And
right.
because there's probably some things that would have not ever taken place if you would have gone to UIC. Um,
Oh yeah, like my entire life at this
yeah,
point, right? My
right.
entire adult life would not have taken place if I had gone to UIC.
Yeah, and so and for people who are listening, it's I think that's always those stories of hope and always those stories that can then model. Well, if Jake can do that, then maybe in my own version I could do that same type of thing and have a greater impact on the overall either my community within just my own household or my neighborhood or maybe even something larger than that.
Yeah, and I like one thing that I don't know, just kind of looking back and reflecting, right, is that like everything I do professionally today, I did hundreds of times for free before I ever made a penny off of it. And one of my passions is education, and so like I like to volunteer at some of our local high schools, and like that's one thing that I kind of tell the students all the time is like, if you want to do something as a career, like do it for free first, because if you do it for free enough times, like that thank you economy kind of model, right? Like if you give and you give and a give, you're going to build experience, you're going to build a portfolio, you're going to build a reputation and connections, and like there'll come a point where somebody will offer you money to do the thing that you were doing for free. And um it's just it's just a different approach than from what I hear a lot of people when they say, I'll do the job better once I get the raise, or I'll do a better quality of
Right.
work once I get the reward. And if you take it and flip it, there's a lot of places you can go with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I probably did, I don't know, maybe 10 years worth of presentations without ever receiving any compensation for them. And I justified that it was just, marketing or branding for KP at that time. And then after that was Shatter of Silence. But it really wasn't until the last 3 years or so, 3 to 4 years, that I able to charge anything to actually make it a part of my actual work week,
Yeah.
as far as the compensation of it. So Jake, if there's anything that you'd want to leave the listeners with, what would be one thing you'd want to leave the listeners with?
uh I would say, like I said, like do it for free, whether it's just you out there knocking on doors and offering whatever it is that you feel like value you can add, and just adding that for free. Or it could be through a volunteer organization, or, whatever. And just say yes. Like you don't, like it's hard to see, or, three bends down the road, right? Like it's impossible. But it's, especially at the beginning, it's easier to say yes, dip your toe in the water and find out that it wasn't for you, rather than saying no. And then you're left wondering, what if I had just said yes to that phone call, or just said yes to that request, or that call for help? What if I just said yes?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So Jake, just for again for the audience, how would they get a hold of you? How would they learn more about Rockford Buzz? What's the best way to get a hold of you, or get a hold, or follow you?
yeah, I mean, the best way is just hit rockfordbuzz.com. And there we have links to, like, all the things. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. We're on YouTube now. We've recently started publishing our videos to YouTube, so we're there as well. And you can always just send me an email. It's just jacob@rockfordbuzz.com. Or you can DM us on any of our social media pages. So I got my eyes on all the things.
Perfect. Well, Jake, thank you very much. Congratulations on your engagement and
Yeah,
your
thank you.
upcoming wedding this year, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the community and inspiring hope for other people to continue doing that as well.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.